Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Indrani Bhattacharya, Associate Professor, Department of Museology, University of Calcutta, West Bengal. Today our subject is Indian culture and the course is Museology. Here I am discussing about the module documentation. The learning objects of this module is documentation, registration, accessioning, numbering, cataloging, indexing, de-accessioning, and lastly the documentation of intangible cultural heritage. What is documentation? Documentation is a written, authentic and accurate recording of information about objects or specimens. Accurate is a property of a museum in a systematic and scientific way, either in a bound book ledger or in a single card or multiple cards or digitally in a computer. The different stages of documentation are field note, accessioning, which also include numbering systems, cataloging, indexing, de-accessioning. Registration is a vital component of each and every documentation. It is the process of assigning an immediate and permanent means of identifying an object or specimen. The different objectives of documentation are to locate a specific object, to establish the ownership, to help in understanding an object, its history, use, etc., to establish the identity of an object, to ensure accountability for objects, to ensure the security of objects, and to help in physical and intellectual access to object. The different steps in a documentation procedure are field documentation, entry documentation, accessioning, cataloging, indexing and retrieval, movement control, and exit documentation. The first step is field documentation. What is field documentation? Field documentation is a written and, in some cases, transcribed record of field events and changes that resulted in the excavation, exploration, or field collection. Field records include following: field notes, diaries, etc., field tags and labels for identification, maps or charts, reports, databases, photographs, maps, etc., correspondence, audio, recording equipment, etc. The equipment generally used in field documentation: a field notebook, small aluminium tags, indelible pencils, field labels, field measuring tape for measurement, photographic equipment, local survey map, gum, cord, light, etc. In a museum, the first step of documentation process is entry documentation. We can define entry documentation as the management and documentation of the receipt of objects and associated information which is currently the part of a collection. As soon as an object enters to a museum, whether as a gift or purchase or loan, etc., that object is examined by the curator and the initial record is recorded in a daybook or initial register, which is also called the entry register. In some cases, a numbered entry form may be used. An entry form should include brief description of the object, date of entry, name, and other related matters of the museum employee who received the object. Here is an example of an identity tag used by the Bombay Natural History Museum, Mumbai. The next step is accessioning. Accessioning is the formal act of entering an object into the collections of a museum. Once an object has been accessioned, it has a status beyond that of merely being the property of the organization and can only be disposed of by referring to the governing body of the organization. It is the formal acceptance of all acquisitions, whether by gift, purchase, or bequest, into the museum collection. Accessioning. An accession can have one object or thousands of objects, depending on the source as well as nature of the specimen or artifact. In every case of accessioning, a formal legal transfer of the ownership is required, such as for bequest, we need last will or testament. For purchase, an appropriate purchase document or procurement request, an invoice. For gift, deed of the gift. For transfer of property. For field collection, field receipt, etc. The main purpose of accessioning is the immediate identification of objects, keeping the track, that is the location and the movement of the object within the organization, the security of the object, cross-reference and related information. For obtaining information about the object without delay, physical verification of the object at any time. Here is an example of a page of the General Accession Register used by the National Museum of Natural History in New Delhi. The most vital part of accessioning process is numbering. Accessioning procedure consists of assigning a unique identifying number to the object, which is also known as accession number. As soon as an object or specimen enters into a museum, it is assigned the number. The method of numbering applied to object may be of following types, depending on the nature of the museum collection. That is number 1, simple number, and number 2, compound number. Again, the compound number may be divided into two types, bipartite number and tripartite number. Simple numbering system is a sequence of simple numbers, that is 1, 2, 3 may be assigned to the collection. It is quite satisfactory for a small homogeneous collection. But when a large number of objects are acquired through an archaeological expedition or other means, it is almost impossible to use this type of numbering system, and then we use the compound numbering system. The bipartite numbering system, where the number consists of two parts. Example 1998.91, which indicates that the object is the 91st item in the collection of the museum made in the year 1998. And tripartite numbering system is composed of three parts separated by decimal points or hyphen. For example, 1998.5.22 means that the object is the 22nd collection of the fifth lot of the collection of the museum made in the year 1998. And the next step of documentation procedure is cataloging. It is the compilation and maintenance of primary information by systematically describing objects in the collection and the arranging of this information into an object catalog record. It also includes gathering information from physical sources, observation, accession records, associated records, research, subject experts, etc. This also includes classification system, codification, methods of describing objects, and other uses when describing the condition of the object, measuring the dimension, weight, etc., and all of this. Catalog can be either made on a card or on a computer program. In this process, the following and the other related information which are pertinent to the particular collection being registered and catalogued may be recorded. That is accession number, catalog number, artist, maker or cultural group or species in case of natural history specimen, provenance, period or date, title or description, medium or material, source of acquisition, purchase, gift, expedition, that is modes of collection, date received, date accepted, insurance values, purchase, and etc. Photograph with negative numbers, exact measurement of the object is also a vital part of the cataloging process. Cataloging is therefore a complex record done after thorough physical observation of the object. All the available information is recorded. Generally, catalog cards are prepared in the documentation department. The curator is responsible for cataloging of each and every object. This is an example of the catalog card used by the painting section of the National Museum, which is located in the New Delhi. Next point of our discussion is indexing. Indexing helps a person to find out information in the catalog without reading every card. The museum should decide about frequently asked questions about the object, and accordingly index card is prepared. So it is a short description of the object in the museum collection, and commonly the main feature and the main points which should be included in an index card are the name or details of the donor. In case of donation, In case of purchase, it should be the name or the process of the purchaser, or if it is purchased by the art purchase committee, it should be indicated in brief. Then the next point should be the classification of the collected object and the actual location of the object. Provenance is very important during indexing of a object, and the artist name or the name of the maker is also important in case of man-made object, but if it is collected by exploration or excavation, the name of the collector should be included in an index card. This is an example of an index card, and the main points here which is used by the archaeology section of the National Museum, New Delhi, are accession number of the object, the main title of the object, and the material, that is the material composition of the object, date, in which date the object is collected should be indicated in an index card, size of the object, the actual provenance or site of the object, the school, that is school of painting of the object, and the source of the object, and an accurate photograph should be added in that card also. The next step is the movement control. The movement of any object in a museum collection inside the museum or outside the museum is recorded in the movement register. It is especially important for tracing out the exact location of an object and for the safety and security of the object. Here is a format of movement control register taken from the Indian Museum, Kolkata, West Bengal. The one most important thing in the documentation procedure is deaccessioning. It is the formal process of removing an accessioned object from the collection. There are various reasons for deaccessioning and disposal of objects from a permanent collection, such as removal of deteriorated objects or for the refinement of the focus of the collection, repatriation or restitution to another people or group. This is to be done in accordance to the national and international laws and museums' own governing charter and policies. During deaccessioning, all the national and international laws should be followed strictly. The other vital part of documentation of collection is the safety and security measures for museum records. These are many deteriorating agents which are responsible for deterioration of museum collection or also affect museum records. Good housekeeping is always necessary. Records should be stored properly. Regular inspection, daily care is very important. Museum records are to be kept in a controlled and stable temperature and relative humidity. Temperature should be between 20 to 24 degrees centigrade in our tropical countries like India, and stable relative humidity should be maintained in between 45% to 60%. When we prepare any documents for documentation purpose, we should use good quality paper, ink, and other types of accessories which are needed for this method. Protection must be taken against microorganisms because in India, in most of the areas, the temperature and relative humidity is very high, and the documents, mainly paper and related type of documents, are easily affected by insect, fungus, and molds and other types of microorganisms. So, protection must be taken against microorganisms. Fire detection system should be installed in the record and storage area. Now it is different types of fire alarm system or fire detection system, smoke detection system are available in the market. Museum may install this type of high-tech gadgets for this purpose. Access and register, index cards, etc. should be kept in the cabinets or in the almirahs with locks and keys for proper safety and security of museum records. The master record should be kept in a safe place, taking sufficient protection against theft and other types of vandalisms, other types of problems, etc. Nowadays, computerized documentation is a vital part of a museum documentation system. Museum is also a part of the society, and now it is computer is an essential part of a society, and computerized documentation also make this task very easy. Computerized documentation means collecting, storing, converting, providing information in the computer format which is standardized, organized and available from the existing system. Use of computers in museum dates back to 1960s. Today, computerization is a solution for inventory control and easy access to the museum collection. Different stages of computerized documentation are data capture. Data capture includes assembling all related information about an object. It includes ordering the collected information into a coherent record ready for input to the computer. The next step is data preparation. Input data can be fed into the computer with the help of some form of magnetized medium, that is compact disc or CD, pen drive, etc. Some database management system can be used to control the vocabulary. Data processing, data storage is also important in computerized documentation processes, and some outputs are also important in these cases. Now in museum, we use different types of collection management software. The following software are already in use in museums, that is AdLib Information System, Art System Software, Commonwealth Historic Resource Management Limited, KE Software, Museum Data Solution and Vernon System and other also. The Indian initiative for the documentation of our tangible and intangible cultural heritages are the creation of National Mission for Manuscript. This is aimed to create a national database of all Indian manuscripts in the country and abroad. The National Mission in Monuments and Antiquities is also established with an objective to document and create the suitable database of built heritage and sites and documentation of all antiquities that are available in different formats. And for Museums of India, National Portal and Digital Repository are already in India. Here is the homepage of the National Portal and Digital Repository for Indian Museums. Intangible heritage is also a very important part of our cultural heritage. So, the documentation of this heritage is of prime importance. The United Nations Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage 2003 is very important. It includes 5 broad domains of intangible cultural heritage. That is oral tradition and expression including language, performing arts, social practices, rituals and festive events, knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe, and the traditional craftsmanship. The strategies for the documentation of intangible cultural heritage are to identify the intangible elements of a culture, to document this following a standard format, to implement proper interpretation in their cultural context. The Indian forms which are already in the representative list are the Chodans of Eastern India, Kalbelia folk songs and dances of Rajasthan, Modiyattu ritual theatre and dance drama of Kerala, Ramman, that is religious festival and ritual theatre of Garhwal Himalayas, Navraj, celebrated by Persian communities of India, Kutiyattam, Sanskrit theatre of Kerala, Ram Lila, the traditional performance of Ramayana, the tradition of Vedic chanting, Buddhist chanting, Sankirtanam, drumming and dancing of Manipur, traditional copper craft of utensil making among some areas in Punjab. During documentation, one should follow some ethics, and these ethics are: the museum collection should be documented according to accepted professional standards, including a full identification and description of each item, its association, provenance, condition, treatment, and present location. These data should be kept in a secure environment and be supported with a retrieval system, providing access to the information to the museum personnel and other legitimate users of the museum collection. The museum should avoid disclosing sensitive personal and related information and other confidential matters when the collection of data are made available to the researchers and others. Here I come to the summary of the module. The The museum of the day in most of the countries follow the standard documentation system which are formulated by different organizations, that is CDOC, AMDA, SAMDOC, CHEAN and others. An object is accessioned in General Accession Register. Every object is assigned a unique identifying number and marking on that object. In most of the museums of India, the computerized documentation work has already started. In the 12th plan period, some schemes have already started to improve the functioning of the documentation of museum, including national, local and regional museums. Museum digitalization has been started to develop a national database for the art and antiquities in the different museums, and the built heritages have already started. CDOC, that is the Committee of the International Council of Museums on Documentation. Here is the information categories for use for the documentation of our cultural heritages. And for the preparation of this module, in this module, the total procedure of documentation of tangible and intangible cultural heritage has been discussed in a nutshell. The first step of the documentation procedure is the field recording, and here we also mention the different steps of field recording and documentation system, and already we have mentioned the equipment and tools which are used in the field documentation process. Then the entry documentation is discussed, and the definition of it is already discussed in the module. The next step is accessioning, that is the first step for systematic documentation of an object after it receives by a museum or such other organization. And this accessioning procedure also includes numbering system. This numbering system are of two types, that is simple numbering system and compound numbering system. Again, the compound numbering system is divided into two types, that is bipartite numbering system, which consists of two parts, and tripartite numbering system, that is composed of three parts. Then we prepared the index card. It is the short description of the object, and the next step is cataloging, that is the most scientific and systematic recording of the information about the object in a museum. After that, we prepared movement control register or to locate the exact location of the object within the museum. The next step is deaccessioning for different reasons, such as different types of deterioration, or for the shifting in the focus area of the collection, or due to restitution or repatriation. Any museum may have to remove or deaccession any object from its collection, and it should be followed by strict international and national laws, and the policy statement and the vision and mission statement of the museum should be strictly followed here for the deaccessioning of an object within a museum. And then we stress emphasis on the documentation of the intangible part of our culture, that is, the documentation of the intangible cultural heritage. It is also of vital importance in the present day world, and already there are some portion of intangible heritage which are incorporated in the United Nations list, and we have to protect this properly and document this for the survival of the tradition of the intangible part of the heritage. And at last, I have given the format of CDOC information databases which could be used by the students for this module. For preparing this module, references are taken from the book Art Museum Documentation and Practical Handling, written by A.R. Chaudhuri, published in the year 1963, and the other book is Museum Registration Method, written by Dorothy Dudley and Bezold Irma. We also took help from the Collection Management, written by Anifa. The main gist of the module is taken from the Field Manual for Museum, which is published in the year 1970 from UNESCO Paris. The different writings from Robert Lights and Stewart's also give some inputs in preparing this module, and the writing of P.G. Boylan is also an important source of this method. Thank you.